The first Phantasy Star is not just the best game on the Master System, but probably one of the best RPGs of the 8-bit era. It also has a surprisingly dark story, with its blend of politics, sci-fi, and fantasy. That is a big part of what makes it such a classic. I originally played and finished Phantasy Star 1 a long time ago thanks to a friend at school who not only loaned me the cartridge, but the Master System converter for the Sega Genesis. I revisited the game for the first time since that first trip through the game, and it was as incredible as I remembered it. There's a couple different ways you can play it. Obviously you can play it on the original Sega Master System. There's also this really cool collection on the Game Boy Advance. And then there's also a couple different HD collections. There's also the Switch version, which was the one I was going to play, but one of my viewers, MMPSP693, recommended the SMS Power Patch, and I ended up using it, so thank you for recommending and thank you to the team that made the mod. It's great for all the quality of life updates, like quadrupling the amount of experience and meseta you get, accelerating walking speed, as well as an updated localization that I felt didn't deter from the experience, but enhanced it. Just like my other Phantasy Star retrospectives, I focus mainly on narrative themes that I enjoyed, so just a warning, there'll be plenty of story spoilers throughout. Phantasy Star 1 was where it all began back in 1987 for the Sega Master System. Playing in 2025, I've been blown away at how big it feels and how much is packed in for an 8-bit era game. You're constantly on the move, going from one city to the next, then jumping from planet to planet. On the surface, Phantasy Star is a story about revenge. But like the other games in the series, there's so much more going on. It's clear from the art that Star Wars was a big inspiration, and hungrygoriya did a great video comparing Phantasy Star to Star Wars that I'll link to in the notes. But Phantasy Star creates its own identity, especially when it comes to exploring what happens when a society starts to fall apart. Lassic used to be a good leader. The manual explains that there was democratic rule in the system, and that all things were going well until the dark priest of a new religion promised Lassic immortality. He was corrupted by this evil church, and the entire Algol society has started to deteriorate since then. It's not clear if he was elected king or seized power after he became the king. But however it played out, the people have been the victims. Monsters are rampaging the towns of Parma, and most of the citizens are too afraid to do anything about it, instead mostly hiding in their homes. It's in this time of turmoil that Nero, a spaceport worker in Kamenet, tries to find out what's going on. He gets caught and is ruthlessly executed by robot guards, a similar fate to what happened to his father. But it's not before he sees his sister Alice and gives her a message. Stop Lassic. Find someone named Odin, also known as Tylon in Japanese, who can help. A lot of people have pointed out the significance of Phantasy Star being one of the earliest console RPGs with a female heroine. It should also be mentioned that it's one of the few games where the death of a male figure is the catalyst for events. It's a bleak opening, startling for its violence. Lassic isn't screwing around. Alice, as a relation to Nero, needs to be careful for her own life, since robotic guards could take her away at any moment. She's all by herself as she starts training for the battle to come. As I mentioned earlier, I used the patch to accelerate experience and meseta, but in the old days, it was a long grind to power Alice up. I think of the 4 games, this has by far the most desperate opening. Alice starts out with practically nothing except an obscure message to find some stranger who may or may not help. You're weak, all by yourself, grieving the loss of your brother, and all of this without any meseta. Your brother was right to suspect Lassic. Many of the towns and villages are falling apart, and that's in large part due to the way Lassic has siloed everyone off from one another. Space travel, once a normal part of life in the Algol star system, is now on lockdown. The spaceport can't be reached without a road pass, but road passes aren't being distributed anymore. The only way Alice can get off Parma is to go to a store in the port city of Cheyenne and buy a fake one. But the shopkeeper is afraid to sell it to you. Persistence is a key factor throughout the game, and it's also Alice's superpower. You have to ask to buy the secret road pass 3 times before the shopkeeper agrees. But you sense the paranoia spreading thanks to the isolation of its people. Lore out in the middle of nowhere has been ruined by Lassic. there's poisonous gas surrounding Sophia on Moda, and the implication seems to be that somehow Lassic caused this, cutting them off. When you visit Draskau, a village at sea, they're surprised to see you as Lassic has even cut off sea travel. In Paseo, your main task is to recruit Meow, who's the old pet of Odin. But 1,000 years before the planet has been completely terraformed by Mother Brain, there's clearly a lot of inequity. The governor of Paseo lives in a mansion in the middle of a lake in the desert. The weapon shop sells the most expensive armor in the game, a diamond armor for 15,000 Meseta. Another shopkeeper wants a ridiculous sum of money in exchange for Meow, a talking cat, but is willing to exchange it for the last thing your brother left you, a Laconian pot. Alice has to give up her last tie with her brother to advance her quest. Once Meow joins, he tells you about Odin's petrification and has the ash line that can heal him. It's a small point here, but Alice could have easily said, forget Meow and the mission. Give me 1 billion Meseta for the Laconian pot, then retire to live in luxury. The fact that she doesn't even hesitate to pursue the truth about Lassic, and neither did her brother when he was alive, says a lot about both of them. From there, Alice has to return to Parma to rescue Odin. Odin, who's been petrified by Medusa, is healed with Alschlein, which Meow couldn't open because of his claws. After that, Alice has to go back to Paseo to speak to the governor, but the governor doesn't just see anyone, even those with good reason. You have to bribe the guards with cake, and it seems funny on first appearance, but it's also an indication that this isn't a healthy government, but a corrupt one. Alice has to go to a cave to find this special cake, but the question is, why is a pastry shop at the bottom of a dungeon? I know it was the developers in a sense being cheeky and adding a questing element to what otherwise would be a simple fetch quest, but we could also look at it as he's hiding from the government for whatever reason, especially considering the entrance is locked off. Once Alice buys the cake, the robot guarding the governor of Paseo lets you through. Inside the governor's house, he reveals that Lassic has grown beyond the constraints of a normal human being, and you'll need more than bravery to succeed. He doesn't like that fact and offers to help you by introducing you to a powerful Esper named Lutz. He then asks you to rest. That night, Alice is confronted by the nightmare of a succubus. My party got destroyed. The succubus was way too powerful, amplifying the team's sense of hopelessness. What was going on, and who was this ominous figure that haunted Alice's dreams? This nightmarish head foreshadows the ending of the game. In the morning, the governor gives you a letter which will help you recruit your final member, Noah, or as I prefer the name from the Japanese edition since it matches the rest of the series, Lutz. At least for now, the governor seems to want to resist Lassic, and there are others who feel this way too. Lutz is in training and is dismissive of you initially, but joins you when he sees the letter from the governor. He suggests the party head to Gothic and find Dr. Luvino, but Gothic is a city in ruins. People are in torn clothing, begging for help. Dr. Luvino has been arrested and taken to Triada prison. On top of that, your activities have caught the attention of Lassic, who throttles flight at the spaceport with the guards even taking away your passport. In the 8-bit era, it was pretty awesome to see this kind of storytelling. Aesthetically, Phantasy Star exudes positivity with its bright sprites and catchy music. So entering the Triada prison was a depressing contrast. It's full of inmates, one of whom became a vicious skeleton because he was in there so long. The prison is clearly one of the more modern buildings that we see on the planet. Robots are the face of the administration and authoritarianism. Political enemies, whether they actually pose a threat or not, are locked inside. Dr. Luvino has been so traumatized, he refuses to leave when you first approach him. It takes persistence and 3 visits to wake him up, and it's only by helping him focus on building a new spaceship that he's able to muster the will to leave. The tragedies of Parma extend to the town of Bortevo. While it's a natural disaster that destroyed their town, Lassic offers no support or help, leaving them on their own. And with so many monsters on the prowl, it's hard for them to survive. Thanks to the mod, I can change the random encounter rate from regular to half, but even at half, there's a lot of battles to grind through. Fortunately, battles are fun and fast-paced, with monster animations being a highlight. There's a fun bestiary. I like the fishman enemies who are pretty tough early on. These octopus look like they were hybrid aliens. There is an assortment of Evil Dead wizards who cast spells. Zombies are gruesome and aggressive, and I would not want to mess with these giant elephants. You only fight one enemy type at a time, though there can be multiple enemies on screen. You don't get to choose which ones you fight, so it can be a little annoying when an enemy with low HP survives another round. The only real type of character building you get to see is through their combat. Alice is a balanced fighter that also uses magic. Meow has the most powerful heal spell, and his wall magic is very valuable, while his claws are pretty powerful too. It's interesting to think of Nei, Mew, and Rika's claw use originated here. Odin doesn't use any magic, but is the tank in the group, and his gun, which can hit every enemy in a group, is useful in managing battles. Lutz has weak combat skills, but really powerful offensive magic, especially Wind, which can hit enemies 3 times in one round. I really do wish you could see your players fight, but that'd be something they'd implement for the sequel. There are optional dungeons like the South Scion Cave, which leads to a boss fight against some skeletons and a more powerful weapon for Meow. The ability to save anywhere at any time is also very nice and helps alleviate some of the difficulty. Honestly, it should be a standard for all JRPGs. Once you get the robot Hapsby working, Dr. Lubeno's new spaceship is ready for use. You can travel to the other planets, including the third one in the system, Azorus. Azorus is painful no matter what game in the series it is. I hate this ice planet. A bunch of interconnected tunnels have to be crossed just to get to the first Azorian town. Thematically, I actually like Twin City a lot. Half the Azorians tell the truth while the other half lie to you. It's a very obvious representation of the way Azorians are conflicted about their view on Parmans. Azorians will attack you out in the wild, though you can actually talk to many of them, causing them to leave peacefully. But one awful Azorian will lead you into a trap if you listen to him, causing you to be locked into a loop within the dungeon. The 3D dungeons were a big deal back then. They still look visually impressive, even if it's only palette swaps that differentiate them. Other 8-bit era games, like the Ultima NES titles, had 3D dungeons too, but the first Phantasy Stars are by far the smoothest. In many of the Phantasy Star games, you have to find a set of the most powerful equipment right before you fight the final boss. In the first game, it's Laconian armor you have to find. This whole stretch on Dezo is one dungeon after another with tons of enemies. The story elements also pretty much grind to a halt, which makes this part feel even more grueling. The time in Azorus must have impacted Lutz, since he opts to come back and establish the Esper Mansion there after the game's events. It makes sense since he's looking to train and grow, and what better place than the harsh climate on the icy planet. Speaking of Lutz, one of my favorite parts is when you track down his master, Tarzamol. He tests you in a one-on-one battle. If you lose, he asks you to come back later, but if you win, he gives you Lutz's strongest armor. It's not just armor you need to get around, you get 3 vehicles for each of the planets. The Land Rover lets you drive over the Antlions of Motavia, the Hovercraft lets you fly over the bodies of water in Parma, and the Ice Digger smashes up many of the ice walls in Azorus, letting the party reach areas that would otherwise be inaccessible. Once you gather all the items, then collect the Nut of Leirma from the forest by using the Eclipse Torch. You head back to Parma for the last leg of the journey. But I want to jump back to an earlier quest where you have to retrieve the Laconian pot you sold for Meow back from Dr. Mad, who's into animal experimentation and demands you hand your cat companion over. If you do, Meow will be killed, so better just to finish Mad off. But it makes you wonder what kind of testing he did. Also, where did he get the money to buy the pot? I don't think it's a far stretch to assume he was supported by Lassic. The party then has to confront Medusa using the mirror shield against her. But her presence seems out of place next to the other bosses until you realize she's symbolic of a society's myths. Lassic's control extends even to the Parman's mythology and religion. Together with his authority over the sciences through figures like Mad, Lassic is leaving nothing to chance. Either bow to the system or pay the price. The journey to the Evil King leads the group to Baia Malay. Baia Malay is easily the most difficult dungeon in the game, but the prison right before the tower is also a terrifying place. The political prisoners Lassic has taken are suffering. One prisoner tells you that those who've challenged him have had their souls taken by his magic. Another is worried about being a sacrifice as Lassic is offering up humans to Dark Force. And then it hit me. There's zombies throughout the planets. Where are they coming from? Are they the sacrifices Lassic has been making in his quest for immortality? Lassic doesn't care who gets sacrificed as long as he achieves his goal. most of the other prisoners feel it's pointless to fight, and are afraid to escape even after you open the cell doors. One of the things I think the Phantasy Star series does better than most other early RPGs are the social themes. 2 explores the problems with utopias and AI in Mother Brain. 3 goes over historical revisionism through the terrible lies about Arakio and Laia, while 4 covers the dangers of religion in Zio. Lassic in 1 is motivated by his fear of aging and his desire for immortality. Even good leaders can be corrupted, which is why it's generally advisable to have some engine for a change in leadership by the people. The Algo Star system lacked that mechanism, or had it forcibly taken from them, so their only hope was a rebellion led by Alice and party, with some help from the citizens within the star system. But why hadn't the people stood up for themselves? It's not all serious stuff. There are a few cameos from Sega devs, and I really love it when developers do things like this. Even in the conversation to get the crystal that'll protect you from Lassic, the Moa, a fortune teller, asks a question that's a fun nod to one of the developers. Once the team reaches the top of Biomalay, Meow eats the nut from the Laconian pot and transforms into a giant winged cat horse to fly you up into the air castle. A dragon comes to fight you midair, and if Meow dies during the battle, the entire team will lose as they fall out of the sky. Fortunately, the battle isn't too tough if you're well prepared, and you most likely will be, as Biomalay is a brutal dungeon that necessitates your best. The air castle is symbolic of Lassic's detachment from everyone else. The rest of Parma is suffering, heavily taxed to fund this luxurious palace. But Lassic and his group of aristocrats live high in skies, oblivious to the people's woes. It's both a social and metaphorical stratification. Every NPC there is an old man, representing the old ways, subservient to Lassic, hoping to get a taste of immortality. Lassic dispatches his robot guards down to the surface to take prisoners, but it's not clear if he's aware or even cares what the robot guards are doing as long as they suppress any discontent. His throne room is intentionally hard to get to so that even visitors with cause would be discouraged. When you face Lassic, he spouts on about how he's achieved godhood. But for what? To make everyone suffer in perpetuity? It's a tough battle, but as I mentioned before, just to get there, you have to already be really strong. Alice finally defeats Lassic, avenges her brother, and saves the Algo Star system. See you in 2000 years, Lassic! But the game isn't quite over yet. You return to Paseo to report to the governor's mansion, but then you drop through a trap floor. The final dungeon is one of the easiest in the game, but it betrays a secret door to Dark Force that can be easily overlooked. It's like the game is reminding you, evil is right beneath your feet, you just gotta be on the lookout. Also, how many sweet cakes did Dark Force offer you, Governor? I didn't get stuck on that hidden door when I was a kid because my friend actually told me about it and explained he'd been stumped by it forever. It's a funny feeling finding that hidden door again all these years later. The actual fight against Dark Force is the hardest part of the game. He attacks twice every round and hits hard, but just keep throwing spells and melee attacks against him and he'll go down. I honestly didn't like the final reveal that Alice is actually the daughter of the former king. The last thing Algo needs is another benevolent monarch with the potential to take things back to tyranny. It also hints that maybe Lassic was threatened by another potential claim to the throne from Nero, but that's also why I refused the offer. I think that's a canon choice as none of the other games refer to Alice as a queen. Also in Phantasy Star 2 time, there's a commander in charge of Moda, not a monarch. But the roots of Mother Brain are visible here with the prevalence of robots that Lassic deploys. There are multiple endings here because obviously, Alice can accept the offer. But if Alice dies in the battle with Dark Force, and then you defeat it with any of your other party members, the spirit of your brother, Nero, shows up and urges you not to give up, resurrecting you. I love this tie-in with the opening and wish it was more easily accessible, showing how the siblings' connection runs deep. In the opening cutscene, Alice asks Nero to watch over her, and this moment shows he was there all along. The fact that it's included as part of a secret ending just emphasizes all the thought that went into the development of the game and what makes it so special. Without the mods, this game would have taken me a really long time, so I can't believe I actually beat it as a kid without any of those boosts. The dungeons are also easy to get lost in. I didn't really have any graph paper lying around, so somehow I had to figure it out when I was younger. But the Switch version does offer a pretty nifty auto map that helps out with that issue. The music is incredible in the game. I'm so happy the patch brings back FM mode, which sounds so much better than the original. But my one gripe is the battle theme. It's my least favorite song on the soundtrack, and having to listen to it constantly grated on me, especially with parts of it sounding like screeching. But those are minor gripes. Overall, I love the game, especially its message of hope, friendship, and persistence. I think I appreciate it even more playing it now than when I was younger because I was able to see many of the things the dev team tried to do. Game development is hard, especially when you have teams of people involved. It's rare when you can get a group of people to come together with a unified vision. So what the team achieved here is remarkable, and it's no wonder this first game led to one of the best franchises in gaming. Phantasy Star isn't just good because it's retro, but stands the test of time even now. It gave us a preview decades ago about the incredible journeys gaming could take us on, even though it was only in 8-bit. Thanks as always for watching. I started with 2, then did 4, jumped back to 3, and now finally tackled 1. So thank you to everyone again who's watched these reviews, even though I did them in the wrong order. There's so much that's incredible about the Phantasy Star series, and it's been a real joy to share my thoughts on the games with everyone. See you all next time.